Hi everyone, this is Karak from ACG, and today I'm bent, broken, and bleeding as I bring to you the review for Flame in the Flood, a Groundhog Day simulator slash survival game, where you basically play as a female Bill Murray in a land where something pretty horrible happened, and it's your job to forage, fight, and flee, and then finally fall to the forces of nature, only to rise up again and do it all over. Let's see if this game, created by some of the luminaries behind titles like Halo and BioShock, can bring us a survival crafting game without the bloodsport tree-kicking antics of most within the genre. As always, if you like the video, maybe subscribe. So here's the review for Flame in the Flood, the world's smallest backpack, playing as Quasimodo's daughter in a post-apocalyptic world, and the inevitability of gut-rending diarrhea until you die. Graphics are up first. Okay, so this is a bit hit and miss. I get what they were going for, and I get that because at times when resting back and watching the wind whip through the massive person-sized cobwebs of a derelict home, or seeing the broken remains of a vehicle car park, the game looks really damn good with an intense, moody atmosphere. But then some things sort of fall apart, especially on the main character. Now, everybody else looks fine, but the main character, as I like to call her, Mumra the Ever-Living, looks like a cross between Quasimodo's daughter and some kind of horrific example of poor plastic surgery. I mean, the first time you see her, she just looks completely screwed up. And maybe there's another sign there that something horrible happened prior to the game starting, some kind of nuclear bomb that was dropped that also contained millions of scalpels that rearranged people's faces in flight. I'm not sure. If it's an artistic choice, it's a pretty unique one. Otherwise, damn. As I said though, luckily, most of the other creatures within the title and the architecture itself still follows the same graphical look, but seems to be toned down, resulting in this desiccated and destroyed location that even has an old bent-back look to it that I actually like and at least look pleasant to the eye. The game also runs perfectly with little to no frame rate drops, whether you're trucking full speed through a location back to your raft or sitting near a fire you just built and making that decision to risk sleeping under the stars or moving on to find better shelter elsewhere. I also love the color palette, which is a far more rich palette than I think I expected for a post-apocalyptic title, and I really like that. Now, animations for all of the other characters as well, like the boar moving to the side as it tried to attack you or the wolves stalking you, all look good. Artistic character design aside for that main character, because some people may like it, overall I'd say the world still looks good, the weather effects and animations passing from average to excellent. Now, I'm going to leave it up to you folks to decide on your own if you like the main character's look. I didn't, but overall graphically, I think the game looks good. Sound, music, and voice. And of course, sound is up first. It's good with wind whipping, water sloshing, and wolves snarling throughout the game world with a really high degree of accuracy and a good amount of tonal depth. One thing that did seem odd is one particular rain effect sounded very tinny, almost like it was filmed somewhere else compared to the others, like in a bathroom or next to a piece of metal. It could have been a bug, but I don't think it was. That being said, the sloshing of the rapids is a high note with a rich series of sounds all mixed together instead of most games' typical blanket of droning static that passes for water these days. Environmental sounds are excellent, and though there aren't that many overt effects to speak of like heavy amounts of echo or reverb, what little is there is excellent. Good sound. Music. It's fantastic, a mix of long vocal tracks that lend an exploratory and solitary feel to the world and more close-in personal ambient tracks when investigating the locations. The music is absolutely awesome. Now, much of it's performed by Chuck Ragan or Ragan, and his ability to elicit an emotional connection with the locations themselves is phenomenal, and I think vocal tracks like this really do a good job, especially if the developer can explain to the vocalist what they're trying to connect, what visual they're trying to connect with those tracks. Very good. Voice, none. So let's move on. Gameplay. Okay, so this is a survival game, a rogue-lite game, as they call it on their Steam page. Whether you pick the story or the endless game, for the most part, you're traveling via boat across the raging waters of the now flooded world, somewhat like last year's Submerged title, but instantly better than that game because this one isn't called Submerged and doesn't instantly disappoint you. Sometimes, and completely randomly, is chosen by the game's engine. Occasional locations will open up and you can explore them as you move down the river and are tracked by both your days you stay alive and the length you travel. Now, on river sections are fairly rote, with you moving around debris until something flashes telling you can land there. Sometimes rapids show up, but you just steer clear of the debris that's there, and that's pretty much it. On-foot sections are also basic in a 3/4 view as you run around gathering everything you can throughout the world to build something that can keep you alive, kill something else, or keep you headed down the watery death rapids towards a questionable future like additions to your raft. While traveling, hunger, thirst, and fatigue are always counting down like inevitable little ankle biters, just slowly eating away at your statistics until you drop dead. A fourth stat, which is body temperature, is impacted more by weather effects and clothes you make out of dead bodies and other environmental issues. However, because of how fast the hours go by, it's entirely possible to suddenly see the temperature drop by tens of degrees instantly, 1 second. Boom, 20 degrees colder. Additionally, while sleeping in locations protects you from elements, those elemental effects are instantly applied during your wake-up animation. So if you go to sleep when it's sunny, you wake up, it's raining, and the game instantly gives you the soak effect, which basically means you have to figure out what you want to do to mitigate that, including doing what I do, which is basically just opium sleep myself away until it gets sunny again. Movement is excellent throughout the title, and there were no issues with that or issues with item use. And the character traverses the land. It feels slick, crisp, really good control. Now, once you've gathered items, you jump into your inventory and you create stuff. Did I make that sound quick and easy? Yeah, it's not. In fact, the moment you enter the screen, you realize with a deep sadness just how much you're going to be in this damn thing, juggling, fumbling, rubbing, and touching crap. You're juggling 3 inventories, your own, which can somewhat grow a bit with a few upgrades, your dog's, actually, it's not your dog, and I'll get to that in a second, and your raft, which accurately can only be assessed when you're next to it, but can be seen at all times. The real issue is that the system is needlessly cumbersome, spread across tabs, and constantly has you moving items out of your inventory into the dog's, back into yours, just so you can pick up a single handy wipe, while a wolf attacks you constantly because the inventory doesn't pause the game. And yes, I get it. It's trying to force particular actions on your part, and of course that handy wipe would buckle your knees because it weighs so much. But regardless of any game system, no one wants to have to juggle menus. Now, moving on from that for a bit, additionally, aside from the raft that can only be accessed while you're there, you can only create some items by a fire, which you can also create or find upon the game world. But for reasons I can't seem to figure out, I can't make a fire anywhere in a location that I can also see the raft. So yeah, running back and forth seems to rock a lot. It's that combination of problems that really defines Flame in the Flood. First, the game has no real sense of intermediate items, meaning many times you're going to have everything you need to build, but you will need to build that intermediate item between, and it doesn't tell you. It just basically says, nope, you don't have what you need. Now, that's not a big problem. I'm sure they can program in some tips that can pop up. Strangely, though, recipes are locked until you get items for them, but all the information about the recipe is there, so it's not really actually locked. It's just that you don't have the items, because when you do have the items, the recipe can be made, and it's unlocked, and lo and behold, it tells you when that happens. It's like celebrating a team's win after making the first shot in the Final Four. Now, normally, that would be just one caveat, but the continual range of issues here really does bog the game down. The lack of proper stacking of multiple items and an odd separation between crafting and using items can result in doing something in one menu, going to another and performing an action there, then go back into the original menu to take your final action. Is it terrible? No, it is not. Is it bothersome? Yeah, and it's just really needlessly cumbersome. Now, one cool thing, though, is that throughout this entire game, there is a push for some realism with certain plants and items having very real medicinal purposes within the game, and I applaud them for that. I've always liked that kind of thing. Now, once you do start crafting some of the higher-end gear, it can be pretty interesting trying to decide what you want to do with the items you find, and that gravity-like pull towards an item that's cool, like gloves, to keep you warm, but can lose out to a snare to get you some food. There's that tit for tat that goes on. Animals within the game are particularly dangerous, and though they've given you a number of later items to hamper their continual digestion of your little emaciated body, in the end, I'll be honest, I usually just left the location preferring to run and let the random island generation possibly kill me versus having to take out that wolf or obviously having to heal myself. Now, while traveling on foot, you may meet up with some wayward kids and trade items or people protecting their homes. These are really short momentary discussions with all text and no voice, and you pretty much move on. and then you die, or you will die. Now, dying isn't really dying here though, because for some reason the game has you returning as the same character. It's just odd. Since there's no real concrete connection, I'm not sure why the same procedural generation wasn't extended to the character you replay. It could be fine, it would work perfect. Also, there are two problems with this. If something is in the dog's pack when you die, it's moved forward in your next playthrough. I'm not sure if he's a Time Lord or something. Now, right there, I'm sure the strategists are planning their purposeful dying strategies to get their pack as full up as they can, but it removes any feeling of danger within the game whatsoever. Returning is inevitable. It just feels anticlimactic and doesn't carry the emotional weight of games that it attempts to crib from. You know, really, when you look at any of these kind of titles, games like these have multiple or a single point of player connection. The thrill of sneaking through danger with your life, the well-planned and executed balance of resources to keep death at bay, or the learning of strategies through both success and failure, or in the end, the connection with the title character. Well, you're not going to connect with Dr. Quasimodo, the Unkillable, because there's really no reason to, and sadly, due to the strangely low number of created items you can make here, especially for a randomly procedural game, the balancing of resources and building just feels one-sided on not experimenting too much and just pushing on. As someone who loves these kind of games, it doesn't feel like any connectivity has occurred here, and it's not backed up by the gameplay itself. Fun factor. Here's the thing. The absolutely hinging of procedural generation and randomness that this game does, the lack of characterization, and the overly small creation system all sort of add up to a game that just was not very fun for me. You know, in many ways this does remind me of Submerged, looking like there was more to offer underneath, but personally being unable to find it and actually experiencing a completely flat game. So as you guys know, I rate games on a buy, wait for sale, rent, or never touch it rating scale. This is a wait for a sale, and luckily it's because the price point is actually quite low, starting out at $20. If you really absolutely want to throw your money at an indie developer, or you want to check out a survival game, or you just like the way this looks, $10 might be worth it to you. As always, guys, if you liked the video, thumbs up, maybe come to Reddit, talk to me. If you dislike the video, thumbs down, and peace out.